Okay, so if you are asked to do 301 redirects for a website project, the first thing that you need to do is ask the project manager, myself or Megan. Megan and I have this tool called Screaming Frog, and Marty might still have it on his computer, but you have to upgrade it every year. So for sure, Megan and I have it. So anytime you need every URL on any website crawled, you need a list of every single URL, come to Megan or myself, and we will get that for you. So first you do is you ask us for that list, then we will provide that for you. So we type it into here, we hit start, and then it crawls every single website or every single URL on the website. And then we download that as a like CSV file. And then typically what I'd like to get in the habit of doing is you guys ask for that via like an Asana task. So send an Asana task to the project manager and ask them to do a crawl of the site. And then if I can find the project folder here in Google Drive, I'll just upload the CSV to Google Drive for you. And I'll turn it into a real like Google Sheets. Otherwise, we might just send it straight back to you in the Asana task, and then it's your job to upload it to the project folder here in Google Drive, and then just open it as a Google Sheet. Okay, so once you have the actual spreadsheet created of the download of the URLs from the live site, and so in a website project, when you have a live site and a dev site, we're going to be crawling the URLs on the live site. Because we're basically trying to figure out all the pages on the live site and how any of those pages might have a URL change on the new site. So the goal of this is basically to avoid people from going to the website once it's launched and hitting an error page, a 404 error page. So what we do is we're basically telling the computer, we're telling the browser, when somebody hits this page, this URL that maybe doesn't exist anymore, or we changed the page name, so there's an equivalent page on the new site, but it doesn't have the same URL anymore, lead the person directly to this page instead. So it's going to automatically redirect them to a page so that they don't hit an error. So that's what the goal of 301 redirects are. So again, we take a download of the live site, and then it comes over to you like this. And it's actually kind of cool because when we do this crawl, you can actually see some of the information that's on the live site that might be useful. If it's a site that has like decent SEO on it, we can probably utilize some of the titles and meta descriptions that we can download from the live site, or at least use them as inspiration, or use them as what not to do, depends. So anyway, so this whole download comes through and has a lot of information. So what we usually do is we copy this first column, or if we haven't done this, then this is your job. So just copy the first column, it's just the URLs, and copy that into a new spreadsheet. And then I usually name this 301 redirects. Okay, so I renamed that, and now I have a list of all of the URLs on this live site. And this is actually a pretty small site. Most of the time there's quite a bit more. So then the goal of this spreadsheet is essentially, we call it mapping, your URL mapping. So in this column, you have the original URL that may be causing a 404 if somebody tries to hit it. And then in this column, you're going to write where this person should be going instead of this URL. So given that this site has .html at the end of the URL, it's most likely that every single URL is going to be changing, because on the new site, I'm hoping there's not going to be a .html. So for this site, we need to map every single one of these URLs to a new one for the new site. So however, note that the site doesn't care about the stuff in the beginning, doesn't care about the domain. All it cares about is everything after the .com/. It just cares about this stuff right here. So usually what I do is I go ahead and I do a find, and I look for the domain. And you want to keep the slash before, or the slash comes after the com. So we just delete that. So I type in the domain without that ending slash, and then I change this to this sheet, and then I don't type anything in here, and I just hit replace all, and that will remove the domain from this first column. Okay, so now you're done. So this is considered the source URL. We have the source URL and we have the target URL. So now that we have that reduced, now we're going to go ahead and take a look. So basically what we're trying to do is figure out, okay, what is this page on the current site, and where is it now on the dev site? So I don't really know this page very well, so I'll probably have Drew or somebody help me with this, but so like this benefits plans, it looks like the URL. Okay, so we may not even know the URLs of this dev site yet. So, but I'm guessing that the URL is probably going to be integrated benefit group, whatever, just slash benefit dash plans. So once you know what that path is, they call it the URL path, which is everything after the domain. Once you know the path of all the pages on the new site, and again, this one's a little unique because it's not one of our like Avada sites. Once you know that path, you can type that into this column. So you're literally just saying, instead of going to this page, go to this page. Now, if the URL in the source URL, let's say the old website, was built pretty decently, the URL structure was pretty good, and like several of the pages, the URL isn't going to change at all from the old site to the new site. It's going to be new copy and new content, but the URL is going to stay the same. Then you just completely remove that line from this stock. You don't want to have anything in here that is mapping to the same URLs in both columns. That being said, you also need to make sure, this is really important, is delete the home page from this list. You never want to be redirecting an old home page to a new home page, because it's going to create what they call like a redirect, like infinite. It's like infinite redirects. It just continues to redirect from the slash to slash to slash to slash, like from homepage to homepage to homepage to homepage. And the homepage URL is going to be the same on the old site as it is on the new site. The only time that you're going to need to include anything about the homepage URL in here is if on the old site, it's again, maybe using some of these HTMLs, maybe the old site, its homepage was something/index.html, and the new site is just the slash. Then you'll include that in this list. But again, you never want to have the exact same URL in this column that's in this column. If they're the exact same thing, delete the whole row. What I always say is safer to remove URLs that you're not sure of if you should include or not than it is to include them, because you can always add them in later manually. But when you're doing this bulk upload, if there's certain URLs that you just don't know where they're supposed to go, I'll like make like a duplicate of this spreadsheet and just like stick them in a separate tab and name it something like unsure URLs or something like that. And then I just put them over there. So you really want to have this spreadsheet, this main 301 redirect spreadsheet tab should be like for sure all the URLs that you need to be redirecting from the old site to the new site. Okay. The biggest thing is just that homepage, because it will cause the site to sort of crash until you figure out that that's what the problem is and you delete it. Once you delete that redirect from inside the website, it will not be broken anymore, but it's something to be very, very aware of. So, okay, now I don't need this extra row in here, so I'm going to delete that. Okay, so I'm assuming I can figure out the homepage here, or the contact page. So it looks like the only thing that's changing on these URLs is this ending part. So I'm guessing from here before is everything that's something that's not going to be included in the actual live URL. So I'm going to do this, and then we're going to check it once the site goes live and make sure that once it is actually live, that the URL of the contact page on the new site is literally just going to be this. So once you have the new site live and you have verified that your URL assumptions are correct, then you can upload the redirects. Okay, so the contact page on the old site was that, and on the new site is going to be this. So again, you're only typing in the paths. You're not including the domains, including on this target URL spreadsheet. So you don't need to have like how we normally have our cloudaccess.host websites. You don't need to have all that included in here. It's just everything after that ending slash. Okay, so once you have every single URL mapped, then you just go ahead and delete this first column because you don't need it. I keep it in there just so that I remember which column is which. So once you have all these mapped to each other, you're going to go up here and you're going to hit File, and then you're going to download it as a CSV. And what that does is it only downloads the sheet that you're currently in, which is the 301 redirects sheet, and it's going to save it as a CSV. Just going to save it to my desktop. Obviously, I don't have all this filled out, but so then what you do, okay, so let's say the site is pre-launch. There's still a ways before the site is ready to get launched. you actually don't even need to do the CSV thing at that point. If you just needed, if somebody just asked you to map the URLs and that's it, you don't need to do anything else besides just figure out which page goes to which page, then your job is done once you've filled out all the URLs, and then you just tell whoever assigned that to you that it's done and that they're all added to the Google Sheet that's in the folder. So that's it. Now, if it's post-launch and you're asked to write the redirects, there's two separate things. We refer to redirects in doing this whole thing where you're like typing them into these columns. This is you're mapping them or you're writing them. So this is you writing the redirects, but then actually uploading the redirects to the website is what happens after you do the CSV download. So now let's say somebody asks you to go into the website and upload these redirects. So what you do is you go, and I'm just going to fake it right now, but so you go into, after a site is live, it has to be live. You don't want to do this when the site is in a development state. So once the site is live, you go under plugins and you want to just check and make sure that the redirection plugin has been added. Most of the time, at least in my projects, that's something that we do in the beginning. And it's best practice to have a redirection plugin on the website as you're developing it. But if it's not on there, you can add it. You would just go to add new. And then type over here, redirection. And it's literally just this guy. So you see here, it says that it's active, which is awesome. We love to hear that. So now you can find it. Ooh, let's hope that I have. Okay, so under settings, it's usually under tools, but I guess on this side it's under settings. So you, in order to figure out where to put the redirects in, you need to go either into settings or tools, and you're going to see redirection here in the menu. So if you've never set this, if it's like you're brand new setting this plugin up, it's going to ask you to go through like 3 different steps to set up the plugin. And maybe I'll see if I can. I feel like I want to show you that, but let me, I'll do something separate on that. So when you install the plugin, it asks you to do setup. So you like hit yes, I want to do setup, and then it asks you if you want to log 404 errors, and you say, and you check that button. And then there's a second one that says like, do you want to track like IP addresses or something like that? And then you check that. So I'll have to find that screen to show you. But and then once you have it set up, it will look something like this. There may not be any redirects in there yet, but it'll have sort of this list. So once you have that CSV and you know that you have all your URLs mapped correctly, you just go into, once you're in redirection, you just go into import export, and then you would literally just drag this here, and then don't change anything with that. And then you would hit upload, and it would upload all of your redirects. And then you can go over here under redirects and just test them if you want to. So you can check redirect. Great, looks like it's working. So here's where you see all the redirects. This is also where, again, like if you have an issue with the site and you think maybe it's because you accidentally included the homepage URL, as soon as you upload that spreadsheet and you realize that the URL, the homepage URL, or there's 2 URLs that are exactly the same path have been uploaded, again, causing that infinite loop, come over here into redirects and just delete it as soon as you think of it. So, okay, and then that is done. Now you're done. That's how you upload redirects. You can also check to see 404s. And again, those are the errors that people hit, those pages that cause an error. And that's just, this logs those for the website. So it's really nice to have this plugin installed so you can see any errors that are happening. Okay, so that is how you do 301 redirects for a website project.